Hi there and welcome to my channel. So if you're new to the channel, this is a channel for people who are interested in personal finance and financial freedom. So I shot a first video for friends and family, and this is a follow-up on that. I thought let me shoot something for a broader audience. So if you aren't familiar with me yet, my name is Jock. I'm an entrepreneur. I've mainly been focused in the property industry. For as long as I can remember, I've been starting businesses. I'm passionate about starting businesses and building things. I started my first grown-up business in 2009, which was a student bookstore, and that's still going strong today. I'm always looking for ways to maximize my bottom line, and I'm obsessed with investing to protect my wealth and to secure my financial future. And as such, I felt the need to create this video first for friends and family, and then for a broader audience. I think there are a lot of South Africans that can benefit from this. And yeah, after the overwhelming support of that first video, I felt compelled to shoot a follow-up. So this video is for informational purposes only. This is not investment advice. This is my personal opinion, and it's what I personally believe and that I act on. So if you want to share this journey with me, I implore you to share it with your friends and family so we can protect ourselves, our wealth, and our futures. Okay. I don't want anybody to be able to say in 10 years or more that they didn't know or that they just wish that someone had told them. And more importantly, that they had taken the time after receiving this information to act upon it. And when I say act upon it, that doesn't mean you actually have to take action after educating yourself. Education is enough. If you come to the same conclusions that I do and you decide to act on it, great. If you come to a different conclusion and you decide not to act, that's great too. But I'm asking you to please put in the time. Now, with that being said, let's strap in, let's get going. So just some background. I'm 34. Up until my 28th birthday, I lived in Pretoria, where I was born and raised. And then I moved to Cape Town. Most of my family was down there. I was looking for a change of scenery, and I had new business opportunities down there. And then in 2021, just at the end or towards the end of the pandemic, my girlfriend and myself moved back to Buenos Aires in Argentina, which is where she's from. And we'll be living here for the next 3 years. And then the decision looks to be to return to South Africa at the end of next year. So let's just get our bearings. Where are we right now? And let's set the stage for this video. Now, right now, we're on the cusp of some serious change that's coming in the world. Firstly, a recession. I'm pretty convinced, and most economists are as well, that we're in for a recession. A nice bumpy one. You can see it with the Fed's monetary policy and the actions that they've taken. They're trying to avoid a recession, but it's inevitable. AI and automation are going to displace a lot of jobs over the next 10 years. We thought that it would be first the manual physical labor jobs, but it seems to be it's going to be the knowledge workers first, right? And yeah, that's going to upset a lot of things, and I think we're not quite prepared for that. I don't know what steps governments are going to take to protect people. But there's also going to be a lot of good things that come out of that. But the reality is there will be pain involved as well. The next one is global uncertainty. We've got war in Ukraine. We've got a lot of things going on. And yeah, there's always a lot of uncertainty when it comes to global politics. The next one is South Africa specific. So we have a lovely energy crisis on our hands due to mismanagement of our current government. And yeah, most of us know that that's quite a pain, right? I still have businesses in South Africa. I have property in South Africa. And it's a hassle, right? You can't, in most instances, you can't even do anything about it, even if you had the money to do something about it, right? It's not always possible to take your entire building where you have an apartment off the grid, right? It's just not feasible. So that is a serious concern for us as South Africans, and the situation seems to be getting worse, not better. In terms of politics, we all know the game back home. Yeah, I don't think I need to elaborate on that. I think we are in desperate need of a change where we have less corruption and better governance. The Rand weakening. So 2008, we came through the recession pretty unscathed. We've had pretty good Reserve Bank controls up to date, but I think Nenegate showed us that it's open season on all parastatals and anything to do with government. And I don't think we are going to come unscathed through this recession. And to put that for you into perspective, what that could do to a currency, this example is not due to a recession that caused this, but due to improper management and over leveraging. In Argentina, where we are right now, when me and my girlfriend started dating in 2017, the Peso was 14 to the dollar and the ZAR was 15. And right now at this time, it's actually slightly higher than the number I have on screen, but it's 465 to the dollar. Just put that into perspective. We're usually used to about 15, right? We kind of think we're a 15 to the dollar country. But the reality is, if that thing runs to 30 or 40 or 50, well, that's going to be pretty bad, right? A lot of your wealth has been wiped out and a lot of your purchasing power, and things are about to get super expensive, and our wages and our earnings are not going to keep up with that. Not anytime soon, anyway. So bad things happen, and we can see here on the chart on the left that our currency is taking a beating, right? This is the last year's chart, and you can see we're 16 just to about 1941. So it's quite the depreciation, and I'm very scared that it's going to start running, especially when recession hits and we're in a high interest rate environment where we are now. But government's probably going to push interest rates quite a bit higher. So what is the solution that I'm proposing, and what is this video about? So in 2008, a virus was released into the wild, a virus that slowly infected the world, and it was mainly through greed and market forces that it was allowed to adapt. And for the last 3 years, I've put in more than 300 hours studying this virus, and much smarter people than myself have come to the conclusion that this virus is here to stay, and it's going to change the entire world. And this virus is called Bitcoin. So most of you have heard of Bitcoin. I don't think many people understand it. All of us are still very much learning about it, but I'm going to take the time today to run through a few key elements and why this is important for you, the average South African, the average citizen of the world, and why you should pay attention. But to understand why this is significant, we first need to look at a brief history of money. So to understand Bitcoin, we need to look at the properties of money, gold, fiat, the original version of fiat, as well as the detachment from the gold standard. Now, the properties of money. Firstly, it needs to have all or many of these characteristics for it to be accepted as money and for us to use it as money. So the first one is a medium of exchange. We need to be willing to use this as our barter tool to exchange between goods and services, right? Back in the day when we had barter, someone who has apples, who wants cows, the person who wants cows doesn't necessarily want apples. So you've got a conflict of wants, and money solved this problem by having a standard that we could agree upon, right? And I know that the money that you give me, I can go spend elsewhere. So it's a good medium of exchange. The next one is a unit of account. Now, this is when everything else is denominated in that currency or that unit of measurement. So ZAR or US dollars, right? A store of value, so a good money should be able to store its value over time. That's what makes gold a better form of money than the ZAR, as an example, or the US dollar. Divisibility, it should be easily divisible. So gold going down to ounces, rands going down to cents. Portability, it must be easy to transport, right? You want to be able to move it. So fiat is more portable than gold. Durability, gold's pretty durable. Wheat and food is not durable. That's why we don't really use it as money, but we did. Fungibility, that means every unit of this money should be equal to another unit. 10 Rand is the same as another 10 Rand. A dollar is the same as another dollar, and an ounce is the same as the next ounce. And then limited supply or scarcity. The more limited the supply or more scarce the money is, the better the money is, the better it will hold its value. And that's the reason we have trouble right now, because we are inflating the money supply, and that's what's making it lose its money. Now, gold and fiat. Gold has been used for thousands of years, and it's been the best form of money that we've had to date, right? And it was a good check and balance, because the original version of a gold standard meant that when we started issuing fiat, which is essentially just a promissory note saying, hey, I want to give you my $100 of gold, which is sitting in a bank vault. Here's the paper that proves I own it. You can take the paper and you can go get the gold, right? That's why we moved to fiat, because it was an easier way than hauling around $100 worth of gold, right? Because there's a big risk of that being stolen, and it's not as portable. So that also had checks and balances in place for governments and banks. They could not print more money than the gold that they held, or so we thought, right? Until they bent the rules and moved us off of a gold standard, or moved us to a hybrid standard, where they only had to hold a percentage of the gold for the fiat, and then completely doing away with the gold standard, which is what's creating a lot of the problems that we have today, right? Why is it more sound than fiat? I once again said that it stops them from inflating the money supply, and it's a better form of money for stabilizing prices for that reason, right? It encouraged them to be fiscally responsible. By contrast, fiat is only backed by a government's word and the ability of everyone to maintain confidence in that economy. But there's the risk that they are going to print, and they always overprint, right? That's just the way it goes. And another important note is that every single fiat currency that we've had on this planet has gone to zero on a long enough timeline. Every single one, right? Even the dollar will. It's not a question of if, it's just when, right? That doesn't mean that the dollar won't exist 1,000 years from now, but it will not exist in its current form. It might be repegged, it will be changed, it will be manipulated in other forms, like a US digital currency, right? Like a central bank digital currency, which is what's going on right now. Please, if you've enjoyed the video this far, please like and comment. It really helps grow the channel, especially since it's new. So, what Bitcoin is and why does this matter? Now, Bitcoin has all the benefits of gold with none of the downsides. The only ingredient that's missing for Bitcoin, which gold has over it, is history. The longer money has been around, especially sound money, the more people trust it. Bitcoin has been around for 14 years, gold has been around for thousands of years. But give Bitcoin 10 more years and people will start to slowly adopt it a lot more, right? Because there's more trust over time. But Bitcoin has solved some major hurdles of gold, namely portability. So it's possible to actually move $1 billion across a border with a bunch of passwords in your head. Try moving $1 billion worth of gold, right? An individual cannot physically do that. And if you're going to do that, you need insurance, and it's probably going to cost you between 10 and 20% of the value of that gold just to move it. So it's not really a functional option. But you're actually moving $1 billion through time and space. We can't do that with fiat. Fiat is good for moving things through space, so physically moving things, and gold is good for moving things through time. It holds its value. But Bitcoin does both of these things. I can send $1 billion worth of Bitcoin from Shanghai to New York in a few minutes, right? Or even a few seconds, depending on the network that I use. Try doing that with gold. That's the equivalent of transporting a physical gold bar from here to there. That is incredible. We've actually figured out how to move something from the physical world by a transmutation of energy into the digital world and actually moving that thing. And you have the trust and the verifiability that it has actually moved. That's a very important point that a lot of people miss. When you transfer money on your bank account, I can phone up the bank and say, please reverse the transaction. Or we all know the story of a check that bounces, right? The reality is that money doesn't actually move from one bank to another. It does eventually move, but it's just accounting, right? It doesn't actually physically move a dollar. There's no guy that takes your dollars out of the bank teller, runs across the street, and gives it to the next bank. That doesn't happen. But it actually does happen when you move with Bitcoin. The next thing that it solves is inflation. So fiat has inflation because we're printing more, so more money supply in the market inflates the cost of goods because there is now more money in the market, so it will raise the prices of those goods. It's essentially devalued the value of the dollars or the currency that you're printing. Gold has about 2% inflation per year. That's because we mine new gold every year, right? And the higher the price of gold, the more incentivized miners are to mine gold. Now, Bitcoin is deflationary by design. It's embedded in the code, and it's going to happen whether anyone likes it or not. We cannot change it. And what's going to happen is the amount of Bitcoin that is issued will decrease over time. Every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that's issued to miners for processing transactions is cut in half. And by this method, we are essentially causing a deflationary environment, which is incredible, right? That's what makes it the most perfect form of money, along with all the other things that I mentioned. Now, the next important thing is a mindset shift, right? And once you start educating yourself with the resources that I'm going to provide, this mindset shift will take place over time. And that is the fact that Bitcoin's value is not actually going up. Everything else is going down against Bitcoin. And it's important that you understand this because this is the advent of superior technology. This is what happens. And it is also a function of its scarcity. The reason that happens is because there are only ever 21 million Bitcoins, right? And Bitcoins are denoted in Satoshis. They are named sats for short, but they are named after the founder, which is Satoshi Nakamoto. And that is like your dollars and cents, rand and cents, right? And the fact that there are only 21 million, and it's also deflationary by design, everything else, because this is a fixed unit, those things are becoming cheaper against Bitcoin. Bitcoin is absorbing those things because it is a closed system. I'm not going to go into detail for that now, but it's just important to note that. Right now, there are about 18 million Bitcoin in existence, right? That doesn't mean they actually exist and people hold them. There's been a lot of Bitcoin that's been lost over the years for many reasons. But the reality is we've mined about 18 million Bitcoin, and there are about 3 more million to be mined, which will be mined between now and the year 2140. So how is it possible that we already have 18 million, but there's only going to be 3 million over like more than 100 years, right? It's because of this deflation. Every 4 years, only half the amount from the previous 4 years is issued into the market. Right now, we issue 6.25 Bitcoin per block that is mined. In April next year, when the halving happens, it's going to go to 3.25 or 125. What is it? I can't remember the math now. Is it 6.25? Yes, 3.125. So yeah, that's important. That's why those 3 million will take so long to mine. But that is also what's driving the price of Bitcoin, right? So I want to do this thought experiment because that gets the everything else is going down argument across. But imagine we only had 21 million homes on the planet for 8 billion people. What do you think those 21 million homes would be worth? What would you personally give to get a home if there were only 21 million? The rest of us have to live outside and in caves and I don't know where. But the reality is there's only 21 million. So what would you pay? What would the value of that home be, right? Everything else would be worth much less, and you would be willing to trade quite a lot of things for a home. And if you eventually get a home, would you actually sell it? I mean, I would keep it for 1,000 years and make sure I pass it on to my family, right? I think most people would do that. And then, what if I gave you the option to sell just a small percentage of it? Because people think you have to buy a full Bitcoin. You don't. You can buy one Satoshi, which is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, right? So what if I told you that you could then sell a tiny portion of that home, right? Because that's the value here. You don't have to part with all your Bitcoins. You can just buy a small proponent of it. And in the future, when Bitcoin's price goes up and a lot of other technologies come, you'll be actually able to borrow against your Bitcoin the same way you borrow against a home. Now, Bitcoin is technology. It just happens to be used for money right now, but it will be used for a lot more in the future. Things like defense. There's a lot of people that are saying that Bitcoin is a weapon and a defense structure. I'm not going to go into that. Truth verification. We can embed documents, we can embed text, we can embed a lot of things on the blockchain network, and everyone can see that it's verifiable and it's secure. So it's a very good way to store very sensitive information. Now, I already spoke about the halvenings, that every 4 years the supply is decreased. This is math that is protecting your wealth, right? Because fiat and gold are inflating. I mean, gold is much better than fiat, but the reality is they have inflation, and that's what's decreasing your purchasing power over time. The opposite is happening with Bitcoin, and it's hard-coded as math into the actual underlying network, right? And the code. So we're already, and I tried to verify this earlier, I think we are already past the point where we're lower inflation than gold. But if not, if I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. It will be next year in April, right? And that's when the magic is really going to start happening for Bitcoin, because that means it is now officially much better than gold. It was already. It's a much superior form of sound money. But the reality is now we've gone below the inflation rate, right? So now we've got a lot of things going for us. Now, as I said, there will be halvenings in all those years going all the way through to 2140. I want to give you another analogy for Bitcoin. So imagine I'm making this video, it's 1990, and I'm telling you about this thing called the internet. I'm telling you it's going to be a big thing, we're going to do all these things, it's going to be wonderful, and it's going to change the world, right? Now, I want to compare Bitcoin and Amazon and the internet. Back in 1990, you couldn't invest in the internet. You couldn't invest in the underlying protocol that we know as the internet. You could only invest in companies that built on top of the internet, like Amazon, Google, now Facebook, all these other companies, right? That's what you can buy. You cannot buy the TCP/IP protocol. But with Bitcoin, you can. That is the underlying protocol. By all means, you can invest in companies that build on the blockchain and that operate in this space. But you have an opportunity to buy the underlying infrastructure of the future of money and the upgrade to the internet that is coming. And that is what we're discussing here. Now, let's just look at what would have happened if you had invested money in Amazon in 1997 when they listed, when you could have invested in their public side of their IPO when they were actually listed. If you put $1,000 in Amazon in 1997, that would be $2.34 million today. That is an incredible amount of money. But imagine you owned a portion of the internet. What do you think that would be worth if we had the same discussion? My argument would be it would be worth a lot more than $2.34 million because that's powering the entire planet. Amazon is just doing one vertical, right? Amazon runs on that technology and it is highly dependent on that technology. So imagine you had that opportunity because that is what we are discussing. And it's not too late. Yes, those guys and gals that adopted Bitcoin in 2009 and that had the faith and the conviction and that bought in and securely stored their Bitcoin are way better off than us, but it is not too late. If you look at global adoption and the hash rate and how the network has grown, we are still in its infancy. That is like saying we're done with the internet. It's too late, right? Stay away from companies that build on the internet. No, the internet's going to build or grow a lot over the next 10, 20, 50 years. We don't even know what's coming with Web3 and stuff like that. So the game is far from over. All right, now I want to cover some of the criticisms against Bitcoin. So the first one is that it's bad for the environment, right? That's the largest claim against Bitcoin. And that is absolutely not true. So let's cover a few things. Right now, the following items or industries, just in the US, not the world, just the United States, use the following amounts of power. ATMs, which are going out of fashion. A lot of people, especially after the pandemic, are not using ATMs as much as they used to. People are moving to digital channels. And those ATMs are being shut down over time because they're not as in demand as previously. And they use 4 times more electricity and energy than Bitcoin's global use, right? That's a large amount of electricity. Gaming consoles, your PlayStations, your Xboxes, they use the same as Bitcoin. Christmas lights in the month of December use more energy than Bitcoin globally. So are we going to propose that we switch these things off too? Because all of these things have a use. And the question is whether these things are worth the energy cost. I would say that the $500 billion of the current market cap of Bitcoin, of the world's wealth essentially, is quite a good spend of that energy, right? If it goes to the value of gold, which is 10 trillion, and most people are of the opinion that it will absorb at least half, if not all, of gold's value, and then steal from other asset classes too, and I'm using the term steal lightly, that's just people saying, I choose to invest in Bitcoin rather than real estate, etc. That doesn't mean they stop investing in those things, that just means they allocate a portion to Bitcoin. And if it goes to $10 trillion, well, I would say that's quite a good spend of energy to protect $10 million, dollars of asset value, right, for the world's wealth. Now, miners are also becoming more efficient and they usually use surplus energy. So the grid is plumbing, it's not a battery. Ultimately, there has to be a match in demand and supply. And most times we have excess demand, and Bitcoiners or miners usually plug into this excess demand, especially from clean energy where they cannot usually store the excess power. Otherwise, it goes to waste. They're not stealing your electricity. They're actually using energy quite efficiently. There's a video below here, and this whole pack will be, as I said maybe previously, that it will be included in the description of the video. And you can download it here, and then you can click these links. This is someone that's going to explain it a little bit more eloquently than I will. Now, the risks. So you've seen that Bitcoin is very volatile. You've seen it go from $1 to $70,000, and it obviously didn't make that jump in a short amount of time. But my point is, it goes from 70 to 10 and then up to 30. It's quite volatile. That's the nature of new technology. All the best technology in the world go through these sporadic phases of growth, and the market doesn't know how to price it. Amazon, as an example, lost 80% of its value during the dot-com crash, and that was included in the chart that I showed you from 1,000 to 2.3 million. That included that crash, so that's just the nature of the beast, right? The next risk is losing your keys. You have to understand that you are the custodian of your Bitcoin. So you need to take responsibility and self-custody your assets. And there are many ways to do this. But there's a popular saying in the Bitcoin community, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So if you leave your Bitcoin on an exchange, they hold the private keys. It's not yours. If they get liquidated, if they go down, any one of those nice little FTX collapses and your money is gone. So self-custody your assets, never leave it on an exchange. Buy from the exchange and immediately move it out. Always store your private keys safely. I store mine all offline. I use cold storage wallets and I use multi-sig. But the reality is, if you want to store it, never store your full keys digitally. If you want to make it easy for yourself, then split them in multiple parts, put them digitally, and make sure that one of those parts is offline and that you never take a photo or make a digital copy of your full key. Okay. With the advent of AI and with hackers, your money will get stolen, okay? Then the other thing is a black swan event. So we have to be humble enough to admit that there are things that can happen that we do not know that could occur. Now, with the known risks to Bitcoin, like regulation and other things, those things will be dealt with over time, and they are not serious threats. Bitcoin can be banned in one country, but to shut down the entire Bitcoin network is going to be really hard from a regulation and a banning point of view. But we could have, as an example, an EMP attack, which wipes out every miner, every node, every computer on the planet. And then the Bitcoin network is gone. But I promise you that if that happens, there are a lot of more important things that are going to go with it, right? Global infrastructure will be down, and that'll be the least of our concerns. So, what is my proposal to you? There's a famous saying in the Bitcoin community, just get off zero. If I am right, and the Bitcoiners are right, that everything else is going down in relation to Bitcoin, and that everything else will be measured in Bitcoin eventually, or that just Bitcoin keeps going up in value, then just get off zero. Make sure you hold some Bitcoin. And the minimum amount, I got this from someone else, is about $110. That is based on math and the amount of people and global adoption, but about 2,200 Rand at the current exchange rates. That's about the minimum, right? So if you come to the same conclusion that I have and you follow step 2 here, which is educate yourself, then make sure you buy that minimum amount in one shot or over time, and then invest more as you're comfortable, right? But educate yourself. That's the purpose of this video. To start the discussion and plant the seed for you to educate yourself on this technology, spend 10 to 15 or more hours over the next few months and learn about this technology. Ask yourself difficult questions. Don't just accept reality as it is. Challenge your assumptions. Ask yourself questions like, why are companies like MicroStrategy taking $4 billion from their balance sheet and putting it into Bitcoin? And their average acquisition price of that Bitcoin is higher than the current market price of Bitcoin. So they paid more than what their Bitcoin is worth right now. Why would they do such a thing? You have to ask those types of questions. What are they seeing that you are not seeing? Okay. Decide for yourself then how much of your wealth you want to allocate. I personally decided to adopt it as my treasury asset like MicroStrategy, and I will hold enough money to cover my obligations in fiat currency. All my additional savings go into Bitcoin, real estate, equities, stock markets. But the stock market, to be honest, is out at the moment. We are in for a nice reset once the Fed pivots. I have done incredibly well, and so have many others in the stock market over the last decade. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, but those days are over, okay? There is a good chance that what will happen like what happened with the dot-com crash, where the NASDAQ took like between 10 and 15 years to reach its previous all-time highs. So you need to find different life rafts. The next one is to decide for yourself how much of your wealth you want to allocate to Bitcoin, right? Real estate is still good. We own real estate. We're going to buy a lot more real estate in South Africa, but I'm not going to use my own money. I might short term to get the deal done, but then I'm going to finance the whole deal. We don't buy deals that we cannot buy 100% with external financing, and that those deals cash flow with those numbers. So they're hard to find, but they can be done. But I will not put my money there. I would rather move my money to the US and go buy property there and store my property value, if I want to buy property, in dollars, which is much safer, or just buy Bitcoin, right? Like, that is kind of the argument here. And use as much of the bank's money as you want, right? Responsibly. If the currency does a backflip and economic apocalypse happens, then your debt is going to go along with it. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Stomach the volatility. I'm talking about Bitcoin now. You only lose if you sell low. So do not sell low. Do not cash out. Just hold. Everything follows a cycle. You might have to wait a year or 18 months in order to get higher than where you were, but just be calm and wait, and math is on your side, and cash it out when you can. Keep enough fiat so that you don't get into this position in the first place. Terms and conditions. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. I'm not advocating that you buy Bitcoin so you can make a lot of money when the next halving happens next year, because that's what's going to happen. A year or 18 months after the halving, the price is going to pop through the roof. But you are welcome to profit off of that. I will profit off of that, but that's not what we're discussing here. We're discussing a 10, 15, 20, 50-year timeline to protect your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren's wealth. I'm not just referring to South Africa. I'm referring to global wealth. But South Africa has special problems because we are going to fall much harder than what the US is going to fall. And the timeline is much quicker. So that's what we're discussing here. A smart allocation, which most investment advisors will tell you, is about 1 to 5% of your net worth. That's what they're actually advising their clients. So if you come to these conclusions, then decide, what are you comfortable with? 1, 5, 10, 50%, it's entirely up to you. But a 1% is a safe bet, right? That will probably be more than 2,200, and I would implore you to consider that. And then spread the word, but don't advertise the fact that you have Bitcoin to strangers. I'm now publicly making this video and saying I own Bitcoin, but my Bitcoin is in cold storage wallets. They're in multi-sig. So that is an additional layer of security. If someone walks into my house with a gun to my head, he's not going to get my Bitcoin, right? That's the reality. So yeah, protect yourself, make sure you secure your assets, and don't flaunt the fact that you own Bitcoin. Just buy and spread the word amongst friends and family so that they buy for themselves as well. Why am I doing this? I'm not asking you to give me your money or invest in me or one of my businesses. I'm simply asking you to educate yourself and to draw your own conclusions. I wanted to plant a seed so that you start educating yourself and start this journey so that you can decide for yourself. Okay. My only intention is not to see friends, family members, and now South Africans. That's the reason for this video. I don't want to see them caught off guard when this technology really takes off, along with economic instability, right? I don't want to see that happen. And the video below sums up why. He sums it up way more eloquently again and succinctly than I can. Resources. So I would say the best place is to do the Bitcoin course. It's free. It's from the Sailor Academy. It's the first link. You can just sign up and do the course for free. It takes about 15 hours. But if you don't want to invest that time, then invest at least 3 hours just to do the first module. It will cover Bitcoin and the history of money, and it will set you up for a sound base. All right. But watch these videos below that first. Those first 4 videos, as well as the last 2 videos, are a good crash course for a very broad understanding. They're good videos, some of them are entertaining, and they're really good. The other one is Matthew Crader's channel. Matthew is a Silicon Valley guy. He is a Forex trader, really good at that, and he's got a lot of courses on that, but now more prominently for the last few years, he's been a Bitcoiner, and he's got a Bitcoin course as well, but his videos are extremely good. They're about between 8 and 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes long, and he's really good. He's really thorough. He's very clear, and he follows a very structured approach, and I really like the way he unpacks things, and you can learn a lot from him. So just go binge watch his entire channel. Getting started. So this is for South Africans only, right? Luno is the best place for us right now to buy Bitcoin. It's the easiest. It's not the only place, but it's the easiest. So you can use my invite link. You don't have to use my invite link. It's entirely up to you. But if you do, I get 200 Rand and so do you, right? So it's win-win. The next one is once you buy Bitcoin on Luno, then you move it immediately into your wallet. And you either have a hot wallet or a cold wallet. A hot wallet is connected to the internet, so that's an app on your phone. And a cold wallet is a device that is not connected to the internet. It looks like a flash drive or a mini cell phone. And I would recommend Exodus Hot Storage Wallet. I used to use it. I don't anymore. The only reason is I moved to cold storage. But Exodus is perfectly fine. It's a great app and I like it. Cold storage, I cannot recommend Ledger or Trezor anymore due to new things that have come to light. But the Blockstream Jade, Matthew Cratter also highly recommends that. I would recommend that. That's what I use. But buy directly from the supplier. Do not buy on Takealot or Amazon from a third-party vendor. These things can be corrupted and they will steal all your money. So please do not do that. Now, the way you send it, you're going to buy on Luno. You're going to say, I want to send cryptocurrency. Then you open up your Exodus app or your Ledger or, your cold storage wallet, and you copy your address where you receive Bitcoin. You paste that into Luno, and then you send it. And that's it. It takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum. To send, I mean, the actual process to do this operation takes about a minute. You can buy anytime. I'm not going to recommend that you try and lower your fees on the buying, but when you send, right now fees are very high with ordinals. I'm not going to go into why that is. They will come down again, and they'll probably go up in the future. But right now, fees are very high on the blockchain. So I would transfer my money over the weekends when traffic is lower, and you can save some money. Okay, so that's what I do. Now, let's cover some investment strategies. There's two main ways that you can invest in anything, any asset class, right? The first one is you save some money every single month, a percentage of your income, and you allocate it to various different investments. And this is called dollar cost averaging. You usually put in the same amount, but it's more about the consistency each month to invest, right? And the other one is bulk investing. So dollar cost averaging, you choose a portion of your income and you put that in stocks, bonds, ETFs, your pension, your retirement annuity, and now Bitcoin, right? And just decide on a percentage. If you're saving 1,000 Rand a month and you decide, cool, 10% of that I'm going to put in Bitcoin. The next one is bulk investing. This is when you deploy a large amount of capital, right? You're sitting on 10,000 or a million Rand and you want to deploy it into Bitcoin in one shot. I would not do that right now. I don't think this is the best time. I could be wrong. There are many people that agree with me and many people that disagree with me. Bitcoin is still highly correlated to the stock market, and we are in for a nice big downward move once the Fed pivots, and I think Bitcoin will follow suit, but I could be wrong. There are a lot of other market forces at play, adoption, etc. So you decide for yourself. Many people believe we'll go as low as 8 to 12K. I think 15 to 20 is more likely, but I'm sitting in cash right now. If I see that I'm wrong, I will deploy, right? But if it goes to 8 or 12, I would be very happy. If it goes to 15 or 20, I will be equally happy. But very importantly, I'm still dollar cost averaging every month. When I get income in, a portion goes into my savings, pay my taxes, and into Bitcoin, and into real estate, and all these other fancy things, right? So I would highly recommend the same thing. That is it. If you got some value from this video, then I will ask that you please leave a thumbs up and a comment if you want give some feedback or just spread the love. And if you want more videos like this on Bitcoin, crypto, and the path to financial freedom through business, property, and investments, then please subscribe. I'd love to have you for the journey, and I look forward to sharing many more videos with you. Thank you. See you soon.